Hello and welcome to the Professional Media Presence podcast. Our theme for today is art and virtual spaces. My name is Anna Kuusela and I work as a senior lecturer in media at the Arts Academy of Turku University of Applied Sciences. With me in the studio, I have two interesting guests, Ville Laaksonen and Leda Vaneva. Leda Vaneva is an artist based in Helsinki. She holds 2 Master of Arts degrees, one in New Media from Aalto University and one in photography from the National Art Academy in Bulgaria. Her work has been exhibited internationally. Thank you, Leda, so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
You actually have a podcast of your own where you interview artists. How does it feel like to be a podcast guest?
That is true. It's a little odd, I have to say. I'm used to being on the other side usually, but it's great as well because it's this new experience. My podcast is called The Visit Podcast, and I do studio visits there.
Sounds really interesting. Ville Laaksonen is a project coordinator from the Digital Art House Turku. He has also worked as an artist and curator in many international art projects. Thank you, Ville, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start our discussion and talk about the artist and virtual spaces. Leda, you use digital technology in your art and you combine physical and digital realities in an interesting way. Can you give me an example of something you're experimenting with currently?
I don't know if I can call it experimenting because I've been working on this for more than a year now. I became very interested in surfaces as a thing in its own. This came from after the latest video that I had done for an exhibition in 2023. It was based on 3D scans. I'm pretty interested in 3D scanning as well. But then when you put the 3D scan in the software, I noticed that when you change the material of the scan, it can have a completely different feel and look and just my own perception about it changes. And I was thinking, how that also could apply for everything else, basically. Surfaces are the interface for us with the reality generally. So I started, that was also about the time when AI emerged. So I started to test how those image generators are able to create some surface. And I started generating these non-existent surfaces. And I decided to give them physical shape. So I started drawing them, pencil and paper. I liked kind of this juxtaposition of the very, very classical, like the most classical medium you can have, combined with this elusive thing. So yeah, that's how it began. And at some point I started mixing those generated images with the actual physical ones from microscopic imagery. So sometimes it's a little difficult to say which one is the non-existent. Well, they are existing at this point already. So, but yeah, this kind of became a fun little game. It's called Original Sims.
One way of combining art and virtual spaces would be an exhibition which exists only in the digital world. What has your experience been with this, Leda?
I had one occasion where I was participating in this exhibition. It was 2020, the peak of Corona times. The exhibition was organized by a German collective called Quarantine, which had nothing to do with COVID. They had existed way before that with that name. It was a funny coincidence. So they decided to gather a bunch of artists and put them in this virtual environment. It was kind of a free version of Minecraft, basically. So it was not some polished digital gallery space. Every artist had to create their own space, exhibition space in the game. And we had an opening. In that space, you can put your images of your own work or not, or just make it as an installation, however you decide. It's like wild what you can do there. Yeah, everybody was welcome to join. People came with their avatars that they could, customize as well. And yeah, it was fun.
Ville, you work as the project coordinator at the Digital Art House project here in Turku. What are your main goals for that project?
My job at the Art House Turku is in larger mainframe related to the Digital Art House project, which is a next generation EU funded project that I'm working on. And the basic idea is that we want to provide digital service paths and explore the potential of digital and virtual platforms to make culture and art flourish. And as a start of the project, I started a community called Culture Hub. You can find it in www.culturehub.fi. And the community is a platform which is basically meant for professionals to find collaboration in digital and physical forms. And it also acts as an online co-residency, and it's extending actually next year towards a virtual residency, and that's also a co-residency. So the concept of residency in virtual space is something that we are kindly working on, but what we are actually also doing at the same time is through these residencies enabling different professionals to find partners to collaborate with. And the collaboration leads to directly to our next forthcoming platform, which is a metaverse platform called Virtual Art House. We are now having an open call at the moment for international professionals to collaborate with. This Culture Hub community acts as a direct path to start producing together content for a metaverse platform. We wanted to do this so different culture professionals and artists could find new ways to produce content to digital environments, even though they might not have the professional skills to do it themselves. I think is one of the main things to do in digital space is, in general terms, to communicate with people and to concretely find something to do with these connections that the digital environment opens. The concrete results, like I said, is something that we want to achieve, and that means that it's not only to create something online or a virtual space, but actually also to start impact on the physical world as well.
Let's move on and discuss the experience of the public. For me, as someone who isn't an artist, I can only speak from the public's perspective. And I found that if I experience art in a physical space, like a museum or a gallery, it somehow feels more impactful than if I'm just seeing those pieces of art online. How do you feel about this? What about you, Leda?
Well, it very much depends on the piece, of course, but we cannot escape our bodies. This is how we perceive everything, and the more senses you include, the better the experience would be, I would say. I have a bit of mixed feelings about this, because if it's a piece that is for VR, for example, I find that medium very isolating, because there is only one person with the headset, and even if there are other people joining there, it's still a little more solitary. But it can be digital art experienced in sort of a projection setting, or a bit more spatial within the physical, when more people can be actually next to each other. So it really depends, I would say.
That's true. What do you think, Ville? Does art lose something in the digital world, or is the experience just different?
I think it's fair to say it's different. That is something that I think the digital environment shouldn't even try to reach for, to just to duplicate or mimic something from the real life. But then what it extends to is then again something that the physical world is not allowing to happen. There is potential to create whatever kind of artworks that has no physical limits, and also the imagination of the artist then comes really more the tool how to create art for the digital and virtual environments. And that is also, I think, what has been happening in arts for a long time, also not just in digital form, but in some way it's rather the process and the concepts behind the artwork that have become more and more valuable, and not just having some kind of visual enjoyment, for example. There is much value in the artistic process, and this is something that is equally required in the physical world and the virtual world, for example.
This podcast is conducted as a part of the Professional Media Presence project, and in the project, both physical and virtual art exhibition will be put together in 2026 with all the partner organizations. It will be interesting to see how this exhibition will be. What are you hoping to experience, Leda? Do you have any expectations yet?
Maybe not just yet, but I'm excited to see how it's going to go, because there are teams from different countries and they create their pieces also locally, but I guess when the residencies and workshops happen, they create them together as well. So this mixture, I don't know, maybe I hope it's like a proper, professionally done exhibition, and that these connections between the virtual and the physical can be done in an interesting way.
I forgot to mention that you are about part of this national artist team here at Turku University of Applied Sciences, so you will be working on the exhibition.
Yeah, I'm participating as well in this project.
One more question for you both. What do you think, what does the use of virtual technology demand of the artist? Because for me it sounds very technical and you have to know AI and this and that. What are your experiences, Leda?
There is for sure a level of technical knowledge that a person has to have. Not so much with AI, I would say, unless you want to train your own model. But yeah, things are made more and more easy nowadays, so that even if you don't have this technical side so much pronounced, you can still do a lot. It again depends what you want to do with it, and also the need of the equipment. Yeah, you cannot experience a VR artwork if you don't have a VR headset. But I think the threshold is getting lower and lower.
How do you feel about that, Ville?
I think it's like the understanding of the process of producing content is something that the artists need to be exploring a little bit more. It's like not being just the craftsmanship of creating something like a solo in your own dark studios. It's also about finding people to collaborate. And that's exactly what I'm also thinking through the Culture Hub. And what I want to achieve is the idea for the artists to start thinking collaboration as a chance to actually try something that they wouldn't have access to. From already like way past, like in art history, there has been different studios where there was like Rembrandt, for example, painting in the studio, but he had actually many other people working in the studio, and the same applies to Andy Warhol. Many different stages, different artists when they start actually working something on that they don't have the means to do, and I think this has become so much easier nowadays. The production that the artist actually needs to be more focusing on the process and the conceptual levels of the artwork. And in this sense, I think the artists don't need to have so much technical like abilities themselves personally. They need to find a way what they want to reach and who they are going to do it with. And so, in this sense, power to dream is enough. It's not requiring so much of the skill anymore. I think it's not even wise that artists should learn all the skills themselves rather than finding someone who can collaborate with.
And Ville, you actually created your first virtual exhibition in 2015, which is almost a decade ago. How has the technology evolved since then?
So that was already in the VR platform in 2015, but it was really hard to achieve. And nowadays, it's so much more easier. You basically go to your web browser and then you open a website. You don't even necessarily need to log into all the metaverse space that you can access. There's so many. And the high quality also is something that you can now even experience with your computer or your mobile phone. So the platforms where you can access the virtual space has become so much more easier. The VR headsets, they're not at this point still something that every home is equipped with, but I think it's just a matter of time when that will happen, because you can nowadays already buy for €200 and a really good powerful VR headset, or 500 for a brand new cutting edge technology headset. So it's not a matter of money anymore. It's rather like people finding the possibility to do this. Those 500 euro headsets actually not allow you to go to virtual spaces and metaverse. They will also add augmented reality and extended reality to you. So there is so much more potential on the digital environments from 2015, and the accessibility has become so much easier.
Let's talk about the future. The pandemic, it meant a huge leap in the way we interact with people. We now have virtual meetings. We don't have to be at the office. We can work all online together. And in the past couple of years, we've seen a huge development of generative AI with ChatGPT and other generative AI tools. There are already artists who make their work with generative AI. And as you, Ville, mentioned, with VR glasses, you can immerse in a virtual reality. And maybe in the future, you can also feel and probably smell in the VR world. Who knows? How does this kind of development make you feel as an artist, Leda?
Especially about the AI side of things, because I mean, when you say digital technology, it can be so many different things. I again have a little bit of mixed feelings because it gives you a lot of possibilities. You can do the unthinkable with that and generate whatever. In the same time, it's more and more important what kind of vision you have as a creator, as an artist, or who is the creator? Is it now the AI who is the creator? But I think that cultivating this vision is the most important thing at the moment, so that we can get good quality of art in this domain, because we have seen this overflow of like the ocean of crap that I understand that, of course, it's an initial enthusiasm, and it's very exciting to, okay, I can do this now very, very quickly. But in the same time, there has to be some sort of a purpose. Why?
What are your thoughts on the future, Ville? How will these advancements in virtual reality and technology change the way we create and probably also experience art?
I think it doesn't need to change anything. It's just adding a new way of doing it. And for me personally, as a curator, I have been always really much involved different art projects, exhibitions, and for me, creating basically different concepts means that I'm trying to build a world, or like some kind of process of creating meaningful content that is then contributed to a single effort that is the goal of the project. And so this means to me that the process of using, for example, VR spaces or metaverse, it enables different kinds of productions, and it's exciting to do these productions. And they are separated from the real life. I would still be really eager to do as well really physical things, and some things are better done in the physical life as well. It's you don't have to go the metaverse to become an artist in the future as well, but it is a serious potentially good way of doing it as well. It's some kind of new way of artistry as well.
This all leads me to think that, is everything going to be in the metaverse in 5 years' time or so? What do you think? Do physical art galleries and exhibitions and museums still exist in the future, say like 2040?
Of course they will.
Yeah, they will definitely be there, and but I think they will be also transformed in many ways. I could already see it in like a couple of years ago, and especially last spring before I started this current job. I went to Mexico for the art week, and so I went through all these different art fairs, and I was starting to see much of the movement, like NFT artists, for example. They were really presented there. There was like already things going on in different places where the digital and the metaverse environments were applied. So I think this is already happening, and also many of the museums around the world are doing like much work to have some kind of content. Finnish National Gallery has made many productions, start from Hugo Simber's work in immersive VR towards game environment in Fortnite. It's just like a matter of time when it becomes something that is basically required of all the institutions.
But you, Leda, you said of course. Why of course?
No, I'm not against any digital form of an exhibition. Don't get me wrong. I'm actually curious always to see those projects and experience them as well. I'm saying of course because it is not a substitute. Like you said yourself that it was not against the digital versus the physical, but it adds another layer to it. I totally agree with that. The physical will always be there, though. I mean, we are physical beings. We haven't found yet a way to transfer the consciousness to the internet, no matter the attempts have been made. But yeah, that's why probably I am convinced that they will still exist.
Yeah, I would also add to that the digital and the virtual space, they are something that, in my mind, originates way back to the idea of when people started doing the cave paintings. The imagination of the people who see the cave paintings is the place where the virtual reality, in a sense, also starts. The imagination and the experience of culture, it is something that doesn't need the VR headset. It's something that always happens in the minds of the people. Of course, the immersive VR headsets add a really powerful tool to use this, but the same experience can be achieved totally in the physical world as well.
Thank you, Ville and Leda, for a very interesting discussion. And thank you for listening to the PMP Project podcast.
Thank you for listening. The Professional Media Presence project is co-funded by the Creative Europe program of the European Union. Make sure to follow the updates on our social media, Instagram and Facebook, and visit our website pmpproject.eu. Stay tuned for more episodes.